Thank you, Jim. I want to say, first of all, thank you to VELUX for inviting me and bringing me to London, especially to Nicholas, who saw me speak in the Netherlands in November, yeah, and thought it would be great to have me here. When I first got the invitation to come to London, I thought, yes, that'd be great. When I saw the program of what was actually going to happen here, I thought, now, how do I fit in? But being here today and listening to the presentations, I think I fit in quite well. I think you'll see a lot of connections between what I'm doing with my work here with the End of Night and what we've heard about today. Let me mention two right away. The first is the issue of awareness. Awareness in the daylighting sense that daylight is important to us, that we need it, that we ought to be thinking about it in terms of our design. The same thing is true for me with natural darkness. We live in a world now that is swamped with artificial light at night, and very few people really think about or know about how important natural darkness is to us and to all of life on Earth, and that's what I'll talk about a little bit here today. The other thing, too, we've heard a number of times the statistic about how we live inside 90 or 95% of the time. If we extrapolated that to the middle of the night, it might be closer to 99% of the time. We really have, in so many ways, lost touch with nighttime, with real darkness and real night. The End of Night is a book of stories. I'm not a scientist or an astronomer or an architect, although I'm interested in all those things. I'm somebody who gathers stories from people who are out doing their job. Now, one of the first stories in The End of Night that I tell is that of going up to upstate New York in the United States to a pretty dark place to visit with an astronomer who lives up there. And he took me out to his do-it-yourself observatory where he has quite a large telescope, and he was going to show me Saturn through the telescope. And while we were talking, we got to talking about this issue of awareness and how we've lost touch with night. And he told me that he's done quite a bit of writing about astronomy. His all-time favorite thing that he's written was an article for Astronomy magazine, in which he gathered all the dumb questions he's been asked over the years about astronomy. And so, of course, I said, well, what are the dumbest questions you've been asked? And he said, it's hard to top if solar eclipse is so dangerous, why are they having it? I hope these translate. That's the funny thing. But I also quite like, does Mars have a sun like our sun? It does. Just It was a wonderful experience because when this astronomer showed me, he said, look through here. When I saw Saturn through a telescope, it took my breath away. And without thinking, I just said, oh my gosh. And he laughed and he said, you know, I've shown Saturn to more than 1,000 people through this telescope, and they either say one of two things. They say, oh my gosh, or they say, that's not real. Can you imagine? We've so lost the experience of seeing with our own eyes the night sky that when we see it in a telescope, we think that can't possibly be real, right? And he's been accused, he told me, of putting a photograph of Saturn in the telescope somehow. I've been really lucky. I grew up in Minnesota, in the northern part of the U.S. We have a house, a cabin up where the country looks like this at night. We have pine trees and lakes. We still have the Milky Way spreading overhead. And so I had that experience, especially as a child, of nighttime looking like this. The natural light of nighttime and natural darkness. Here's another good natural light of the night, the moon. So beautiful and so wonderful, and I often think that it's this experience as a child that has brought me here today. It's why I'm standing here. As I got older, I really wanted to learn the stars, and I finally learned the constellations. And when I did, I very quickly learned that I couldn't see half the constellations that I was supposed to. And why is that? It's because of our use of artificial light at night, which far too often is like this light, or this light glaring bright, too bright, unshielded, and getting in the way. We often use lights like this. We point it either straight into the sky or so that it's bouncing off something and going into the sky. Or we use, and this is actually even worse, we use light like this at night horizontally. So these lights are supposed to be lighting this parking lot or car park, but they're going far beyond that. They're mixing with the atmosphere and creating what we call light pollution. And light pollution is, by definition, the overuse and the misuse of artificial light at night. It's not, and I'm not saying light is bad, artificial light is bad. Not at all. Artificial light is amazing, wonderful. We're going to have it. The question is, how are we going to use it? And I want to talk to you about how we are using it and how we could use it. So we've seen this image a couple times already today. I always think two things when I see this image. The first one is, it's really beautiful in many ways. It is, and I'll show you more images of this later, but it is the beauty of light in the context of darkness. I think it's an impressive image. It is also, though, an image of waste. I mean, the light that you're seeing here is, the vast majority of the light you're seeing here is light that is, as I showed you earlier, shining up into the sky, right? It's not doing anyone any good. It's not making anybody any safer. It's not helping anybody at all. So this is wasted light. Here's a close-up of the US, and I have a close-up of Europe a little bit later. When we talk about light pollution, I'll give you three elements of light pollution. The first one is, we've heard this word a lot today, glare. This is glare in the context of light pollution at night, that light that's shining into our eyes, shining into our neighbors' houses, shining into the sky, all directions. The next one is something we call light trespass. You see the light on the building on the left shining across the street and bathing this house on the right with light. If you look closely, you can see this is at a university in the States. If you look closely at the house, the windows, you can see that the students who live in that house have hung black curtains in the windows so that they can sleep at night, right? And so the idea here is that the light that's the property here on the left is using is trespassing onto that other property. I don't know if you know, but in the U.S., we're obsessed with property rights. It's really important. But when it comes to light at night, we just stop thinking about it. We spray our light all over the place. So we have glare, we have light trespass, and here's something we have that's called sky glow. And this is a really interesting image because if you see on the right as you're looking at it, what it usually looks like. This is a suburb of Toronto. This is what it usually looks like. This is sky glow on the right. They had a power outage in Toronto a few years ago, and one of the folks living on the street wandered down and took a picture of the night sky without the power on. So you can see what's being lost through sky glow. Every city and town has the same list of ingredients for light pollution. This is true in Europe as it is in the States. Some of the main ingredients, stadium lighting, sports lighting, you can see here on the left. This is actually the town I live in Virginia. You can see the sky glow has pretty much wiped out certainly the stars on the horizon at that point. So stadium lighting. Street lighting is probably the biggest contributor to light pollution. Car parks or parking lots, as we say. And this photo, I want you to notice, number one, there's not a single vehicle here. And this is at 3 in the morning. So one of the things that we do that seems really foolish is that we light our areas outside at the same level all night long, regardless of what's there. So it reminded me a lot of when David was talking this morning about the lights being on in daylit rooms. We have the lights on all the time outside at this very bright level, regardless of what's going on. Same is true at our, what we call gas stations, incredibly bright. In fact, our gas stations and our parking lots are lit in the States now about 10 times as bright as they were just 20 years ago. So there's been this very steady growth of light just over the last couple decades. And people think this is for safety and security. Right? And we'll talk about that in a moment. That is a really complex issue. What this has to do, especially with gas stations, is getting you to stop and buy gas. Right? They know that you're attracted to light. And so if one gas station becomes bright, the other one is going to come even brighter, right? We're attracted to light, just like the bugs, right? Las Vegas, right, of course. But the thing I would point out here is the LED billboard here, which are spreading all over the States. They're just multiplying, and they're incredibly bright and oftentimes on all night long. So here's that promised photograph of Europe at night. It's very impressive. I mean, it looks like there's a lot of light, but it also kind of looks like there's a lot of darkness. And you see the major cities. What I'd like to point out here is in northern Italy, it looks like there's this enormous valley of darkness. Like if we could just get there, we could get back to natural darkness. It turns out that's not really the case. About 12 years ago, almost 15 years ago now, a couple Italian astronomers put together what they called the World Atlas of the Artificial Night Sky Brightness. So it's essentially an atlas of light pollution. And what they did is they took this information and they used colors and computers to give us a more informative view of light pollution, the real spread of light pollution. So sure, we all know the cities are really bright. But we have this illusion that if we can just get out of the city, it'll be dark again, right? So this is the next image, this image on their atlas of light pollution. So you can see the bright white splotches of the major cities, but here's that valley, supposedly dark in northern Italy. It's not naturally dark anymore. Yeah, it's darker than the cities, sure, but it's not naturally dark. There is nowhere in Western Europe that is naturally dark anymore, except some of the black places you can see on the map, right? There's our atlas of South America. One of the amazing things is that the data that they used to make these maps comes from 1999. It has not gotten better, it's gotten worse, let me tell you. So this is outdated. But they did a really wonderful thing where they, with the US, wonderful in quotation marks, where they showed us, they estimated backwards and then forward to show us the trajectory of where we've come and where we may be headed. And here's what that looks like. So you can see the growth from the 50s to the 70s to when they had about when they had the data to their estimate of if we don't do anything about light pollution, what the map will look like in 2025. And you could do the same thing for Western Europe as well. So that's one way to think about the real spread of light pollution, the reality of light pollution. Here's another one. This is an abbreviated version of something we call the Bordel Scale. It's named after an amateur astronomer from New York State, John Bordel. He came up with a 9-point scale to give us a sense of what darkness really is and what we've lost, because he was tired of having primarily younger astronomers call him up and say, John, we found this really dark spot. You have to come out and see it. And he would go out there and he realized it really wasn't that dark. So he put this together, and he showed us in the cities. It's a little bright, so appropriately enough, I guess. We can't see how much we've lost, but there are hardly any stars in 9 or 8. You see a few in 7. You have to get down to 3, 2, or maybe 1 before you really start to get back to a brilliant night sky. Most Americans, most North Americans, and most Western Europeans live their whole lives in levels 5 and above. And they rarely or never experience anything darker. In fact, one of the estimates that I found when I was researching the book is that 8 out of 10 children born in the U.S. and North America and Western Europe now will never live where they can experience this. So they just will never see it. So we're losing the experience. Our children are losing the experience of a real night sky. I borrowed that structure for my book. I start in very bright places. I start in Las Vegas and work my way down to some really dark places. I show this because I want to express how many different issues this issue of the importance of darkness, the costs of light pollution touch. So you have issues in Chapter 7 of safety and security, Chapter 6, human health. We've heard a lot about that already today. Chapter 5, environmental health, ecology. Chapter 4, the impact on our spirits and soul. When we talk about health, we have to talk about mental and psychological health as well. What have we lost as we've lost the night? One thing that really moves me and that is at the heart of my work is our impact on our fellow creatures, or impact on ecology. And I think this is something that many or most of us don't realize is at night the wild world comes alive, right? We have more than 2/3 of insects are nocturnal. 1/3 of vertebrate species are purely nocturnal. So many others are crepuscular, meaning they're most active at dawn and dusk. And when we shine our artificial lights into their habitat, we effectively, well, at least damage, sometimes effectively destroy. I'll show you a pretty dramatic picture of that. Here's a building here that's lighting up all this wood. These woods are lost to nocturnal habitat. But here's the thing, right? Whenever you hear about light pollution, whenever I talk about it, whenever I talk about the overuse and misuse of light, people say, yes, but don't we need all this light for safety and security? In fact, I live in one of the top 10 safest cities in the United States. I don't know how they figured it out, but they figured it out. But when I go to the local store, this is what I see. I see a sign telling me that I need these lights, I better buy them to deter crime and keep my family safe, right? And not only that, it's the type of lighting that they want me to buy, which are these lights that are going to glare all over, shine in all directions, blind me when they come on, right? Light is good. We are going to have light. Light can help us be safer and more secure. But that doesn't automatically mean that ever more light will make us ever more secure. In fact, it works just the opposite many times. I'd like to show you 2 images that do a good job of illustrating that when you have too much light, it actually makes it hard for you to see. It actually stands to reduce your safety, not improve it. So this is an image from Tucson, Arizona, in the States. Very common, what we call security lights. You see these all over. They're unshielded, meaning they're shining all over and into your eyes. The next photo is the exact same photo. The only difference is that the photographer is going to hold his hand up to shield the light, okay? And when he does that, then you can see the bad guy standing in the fence, right? So I'll go back. You can kind of see him, right? Right? But the idea is that we're taught that from the time we're little, light equals safety, darkness equals danger, light is good, dark is bad, more light is better. More light is not better. It's more important how we use the light when it comes to safety. right? So here's a nice way to look at it. We have far too many lights like this that are not only contributing to light pollution, but making it hard to see the little bad guy under the light. What we would like is to have, no one's saying no lights, right? We're going to have lights, but let's have lights that shine downward where we need it. Then we can see the bad guy, we can bring back the stars. We can take football pitches like this. We can shield the lights so that the light is only going down to the field. We can take street lights like this. We can put the lamp actually up in the fixture, remove the glass from the lamp so the light, are they molecules? I can't remember the funny story I told. Anyway, they can only go down. I'll have to remember that. This is what they look like in the street, and we create the effect of streets that are like this. You can see all the way down the street. You can see who's coming toward you. You're not blinded by the lights. I did. We remove the glass from the lamps so the light molecules don't bounce around. I had a good friend who's a biologist, and he said, Paul, it's not light molecules, it's light particles. Light doesn't come in molecules. You probably all know that. So here we are in London, and what I'd like to do here at the end is to wax a little bit more philosophic and a little bit more artistic than maybe we've heard throughout the day, but to begin with the idea of beauty, which really drove my writing of The End of Night. I love nighttime, I always have. I love the beauty of it, the sounds, the smells, whether it's the sky or the sound of the birds at night, the insects. I even love beautiful nighttime lighting. You can see this tonight. I think this is quite nice. I think Paris does a wonderful job. They've spent a lot of money and time relighting the city. Funny story about this, they spent about 10 years relighting Notre Dame. One of the designers told me that they got almost everything they asked for from the priests. The priests agreed to almost everything they had in mind for Notre Dame, except for two things. They wanted to light the rose window up, and the priest said no. And they wanted to create what they called a light bell, that every hour on the hour there would be a strobe light that told the length of the cathedral. How many, so if it was 10 o'clock, it would do 10 times, right? And the priest said, no, you can't do that. This is a cathedral, not a disco. Think about how beautiful light in the context of darkness and relationship with darkness is. We use light to create, like here in Santa Fe in New Mexico, beauty, romance, warmth. And think also of here, if you can see in the bottom of the screen, is the lone human figure. We've taken what was once one of the most common human experiences, which is what you're seeing here, of walking out our door at night and coming face to face with the universe. We've taken that experience and made it one of the most rare of human experiences. This almost never happens. Our kids don't get to experience this. So what's lost? Well, think about all the perhaps young Van Goghs out there who are not being inspired to paint Starry Night. Think about all the poets and writers and playwrights and musicians and dancers, all the astronomers, all the scientists, all the religious thinkers and philosophers who are not being inspired by the night. In fact, the next slide I'll show you is perhaps what this would look like if it were painted today. Not quite as inspiring. Van Gogh really had a wonderful love for the night sky and did a wonderful job. When I was researching the book, I wanted to go see where he painted these paintings, and you can go to Arles. You can actually go to the exact spot where he painted this work. So I was very excited. I went there. I waited until it got dark. And this is what I found. There's the poster that says, "On this spot, Van Gogh painted." I was talking with Nicholas before this, and he asked me what is a good question, which is, you see sometimes really dramatic pictures of the night sky, and he said, how much of that is the camera? How much can we really see? And I said, one of my favorite images for my talk is this one, because this came on a night when I was out in Death Valley National Park in California and Nevada. I was out with a National Park Service night sky team guy. The U.S. National Park Service has actual people who work to conserve darkness in the national parks. And he took this picture of the night sky, and I have to say, this is really what it looked like that night. This is what I remember. This is how beautiful it is. I remember standing in Death Valley facing north and just watching the stars rise out of the horizon in the east and fall off the edge of the earth in the west. I could feel the sky revolving around me, and that is an amazing, amazing experience. But if you remember that 9-to-1 scale I showed you before, 9 being our inner cities, 1 being natural primal darkness, even this would probably be a 2 because of the light from Las Vegas here in the corner. So even when you're in a beautiful place like this, you're not completely back to level 1. The guy I was with that night, Dan DeRisco, told me he's taken measurements in over 200 different locations in the U.S. national parks, and he's awarded 3 places level 1 darkness. This is one of them. This is also in Death Valley, black and white photo, the racetrack area of Death Valley. We still have skies like this left in some ways, in some places. I'd like to close by just reading a couple paragraphs from the book about an experience that I had in a place that's a little closer to where we are now, and maybe some of you have experienced this as well. The most beautiful starry night I've ever seen was more than 20 years ago when I was backpacking through Europe as an 18-year-old high school graduate. I had traveled south from Spain into Morocco, and from there south to the Atlas Mountains at the edge of the Sahara, to a place where nomadic tribes came in from the desert to barter and trade, a place that when I look on a map, I can no longer find. One night in a youth hostel that was more like a stable, I woke and walked out into a snowstorm. But it wasn't the snow I was used to in Minnesota or anywhere else I'd been. Standing bare chest a cool night, wearing flip-flops and shorts, I let a storm of stars swirl around me. I remember no light pollution. Heck, I remember no lights. But I remember the sense of the light around me. I remember the light around me, the sense of being lit by starlight. And I saw the sky that night in 3 dimensions. The sky had depth. Some stars seemingly close, some much farther away. The Milky Way so well defined, it had what astronomers call structure, that sense of its twisting depths. I remember stars from one horizon to the other, stars stranger in their numbers than the wooden cart full of severed goat heads I'd seen that morning, making a night sky so plush it still seems like a dream. So much was right about that night. It was a time of my life when I was every day experiencing something new. I felt open to everything, as though I were made of clay and the world was imprinting upon me its breathtaking beauty. Standing nearly naked under that Moroccan sky, skin against the air, the dark, the stars, the night pressed its impression, and my lifelong connection was sealed. Thank you.
Paul has agreed to take a few questions. I know we're running late, but here's your chance. Anybody like to ask a question? Nicholas, were you ready with mics and stuff? Okay.
Wins dinner.
Yeah.
We have the usual one.
Yeah.
Ladies first.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Deborah.
Okay, I'm curious. I want to know about the goat heads.
Yeah, I don't know if others of you have seen this. I saw with my own eyes a cart full of severed goat heads in Morocco. And I, being a kid from suburban America, had really never seen a cart full of severed goat heads. So it stunned me, as did the poverty that I saw, the rag-clad children I write about there. But I think that feeling of being stunned is what I also felt when I walked out and looked up and just thought, it's snowing. Like it's incredible. The desert is, very wonderful for seeing the stars, so yes. There's one over there.
Just want to say, what's the call to action?
Yeah. So one of the things about light pollution is that it is very much in our ability to control. It's, as I was talking to somebody last night, we rightly talk about climate. Climate can seem so big sometimes. Light pollution, on the other hand, can seem like, well, it's not that big a deal. And so my answer to that is, well, let's solve it then, right? It's not that big a deal. And you all know light is incredibly symbolic. And I think that if we were to control our use of light at night, make it thoughtful, intelligent, beautiful, rather than irresponsible, lazy, and ugly, and wasteful, that would be really symbolic of the way that we're using our resources, using our energy. The main thing we need to do first is to shield our lights, right? So buy lights that are already shielded, work in your communities to have lighting ordinances that mandate shielding. Let's make the light that we use only be going down where we need it and not anywhere else. And then work with people like Jim and others to push the industry, the lighting industry, to give us the lights that will contribute to the solution and not compound the problem.
Hello, hi. Where in the world would you recommend us to go to reach to the number one? Would that be like the James Turrell Road in Crater?
Well, Flagstaff is outside Flagstaff. It would be great. And let me preface this answer by saying you don't have to go to level 1 to see a wonderful night sky, as I showed with the second to last slide there. The biggest thing, and we've heard this from other speakers in other contexts, is just to get outside at night. Go get outside and see what you can see. Experience the night. Take your kids out and show them what stars you can see, right? Kind of a funny aside to that, one of the astronomers I talked to in Paris told me he no longer considers the telescope the primary tool of the astronomer. The primary tool of the astronomer now is the automobile. Because you have to drive a long ways to get to where you can see the stars. To answer your question, Hawaii, fantastic. The Atacama Desert in Chile, fantastic. The Outback in Australia, fantastic. I'm sure I haven't been northern Scandinavia, must be amazing. There are many places where you can see a level 1. Most of us don't live by them, though, right? Most of us live in these places that are polluted by lights, and we rarely or ever will get to those places.
One more question.
Just to say, the level 1 is a bit closer than that. You granted a level 1 to County Kerry in Ireland, It's a level 1.
No, I'd love to, though.
Yeah, well, that's the level 1 that was granted a couple of years ago, and I recently saw a moonbow over Valenche
there you go.
Island.
Okay.
So that was something else.
Thank you, yeah.
Okay, one more. Go ahead.
Similar thoughts with sound intrusion.
Yeah.
Have you met those people?
Sure, absolutely. In fact, the office in the U.S. National Park Service is sound and light, or sound and darkness. They work together, right? So yeah, in places where you find bright lights, you probably are going to find loud noises, and vice versa. Places where you find darkness, natural darkness, you'll probably find quiet as well. Those two things go together quite a bit. A lot of people have said, oh, you should write your next book on noise, on sound, because they're so similar. There are some good books already on this problem, this issue. I think it's also, there are similar issues in the sense that we're so used to the level of noise and light that we just think it's normal, right? It's not normal. It's what we're choosing to have. If you're younger than 40, you don't know probably, at least in the States, you don't know a truly dark night. I never have. When I say, let's hear stories from people who've seen a real night sky, it's usually the people who are in their 60s and 70s and 80s who stand up and share the stories, not the younger people. And I think it's the same with noise, too. There's so much noise. My students all wear the earbuds all the time. They go from that to their rooms where they have sound. They go downtown, it's loud. There's noise everywhere. One of the books I was talking about is called 1 Square Inch of Silence. And it's the story of a guy who went around recording levels of sound in places, looking for one place he could go in the US where he didn't hear the sound of an internal combustion engine within a half hour. And he found 1 square inch in Olympia National Park up in the state of Washington. But just shows you, I mean, we're losing quiet as well.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful.